What's good, YouTube? Just a casual nerd here, back again with another video. And today I got a little something different for you. I won't be necessarily reviewing a show or a movie or giving my opinion on some media related news, but rather today I'm going to present a case study, and the topic will be why Star Wars is successful and Yasuke failed. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with it, well, I'm sure most of you guys listening are familiar with Star Wars. Even if you haven't watched it, you know what Star Wars is. But if you're not familiar with Yasuke, it's actually a anime that was on Netflix. It was based on a black samurai in Japan who was actually a real person who lived during that time. So it's an anime, but again, it's based on a real person. Where Star Wars, even though it happened a long time ago, we all know is a fictional universe. So, given that information, you're probably wondering why in the world am I even comparing these two? Well, I'm actually going to break that down today because we know Star Wars is successful. It's been here around since the 70s, and Yasuke is very recent. I think it came out about a year ago now, and there was a lot of hype surrounding this, especially with being a black samurai. It's something that we don't really see always, and the fact that it was based off a real person. So there was a lot of hype that died down very quickly, probably a couple days after release date, after everyone got a chance to watch it. So, but these actually two different properties have a lot of different similarities. So I want to do a quick case study on why Yasuke did not work, but Star Wars has been successful for decades. Now, forgive me if I do a little rambling during this case study. I do not script any of these videos, so I am going to be kind of coming from the dome a little bit, but I am going to hit you with a couple facts, all right? So let's get right into it. So first, Yasuke, which is one of his first mistakes, but Yasuke, yes, he is a samurai, but the series that was on Netflix has samurais, mechs, and magic. Now, let's take a look at Star Wars. They have samurais, aka Jedis, magic, aka the Force, and mechs, aka they have a lot of different droids. So these same concepts are present in both of them, but the outcome is much different. And I think I have a little bit of explanation why after thinking about it a little bit more. I think I have an explanation on why these outcomes are so different. So if I could, I'm going to take you guys back to class real quick. Let's go all the way back to like 8th grade science. Now, in science class back in the day, we learned about two different concepts. One is something called a homogeneous mixture, okay? A homogeneous mixture is defined as a mixture in which the composition is uniform throughout the mixture. So on the opposite side, on the flip side, we also learned what a heterogeneous mixture is, and that's defined as a mixture with a non-uniform composition. So basically the opposite, right? So for example, if you look at a glass of wine, it has a lot of actually different ingredients in it, but when you look at it, all you see is the wine. When you taste it, all you taste is the wine. Now, if you're a little bit more of a connoisseur, you can probably, taste some of the difference, but when you actually look at it with your eyes, you see that's a, one uniform drink. Now take a look at, let's say something like trail mix, all right? Now, when you look at trail mix, you can clearly see it is, even though it's all in one bag, you can clearly see each different ingredient it has in there, where they have, some crackers in there, pretzels, raisins. You all see that. You see each different component in there, and if you're like me, you might get a little picky. Some of them you like, some of them you don't, but it's trail mix, so you get what you get. But that will be considered a heterogeneous mixture. Now, what does that have to do with Star Wars and Yasuke? Now, my theory is that each story, each property, they have different story elements, and each story elements, I'm just gonna consider those ingredients of a dish, okay? But now, how I see Star Wars, I see Star Wars as a homogeneous mixture of story elements, where Yasuke is a heterogeneous mixture of story elements. Now, 9 times out of 10, most storytellers, that when they develop a story or are developing story elements, they want the viewer to, drinking like a glass of wine. Yeah, it may have a lot of different things in it, but it goes down smooth. You see exactly what it is. You go into that world knowing a little bit what to expect, even if it has a whole bunch of different ingredients. So like whether it's a James Bond film, a MCU film, even like a Toy Story film, what the storyteller is trying to do is bring you into that world and make the story elements make sense, so that when you're watching it, even though something may be outside of our world that we experience, it makes sense in that world. And that's normally how stories are told. It's a homogeneous mixture. Now, it's very rare that you can have like a heterogeneous like story elements where things are kind of a little bit everywhere, but it still works almost like trail mix. It's very rare. I would say a Hunter x Hunter would be a good example of that. It's a if you're not familiar, it's an anime, but it has a lot of different elements. Even each arc is almost completely different from each other, but it works. But that's rare, and it takes a lot of talent to really pull that off. Now let's go back to Star Wars and Yasuke. So I would say I would look at Star Wars. Let's make Star Wars coffee. Okay, we see coffee. It's just coffee. It's this homogeneous story elements. Even though it has they use the Force, they use swords. There's also droids. It just makes sense in this world. George Lucas did a good job. But once you go into this world, it's everything that you see is already part of the environment. Now the Force part, it was introduced organically, but it still made sense. Now if we break down some of the ingredients of coffee, let's just do like the bare minimum. See, if you have coffee grounds, you have hot water, milk, and sugar. Those all things can make a good coffee. But imagine if you had those ingredients, somebody put a bowl in front of you and they put some coffee grounds in it, threw some hot water on it, pour some milk in it, and then pour some sugar on it. You would not want that because even though those same things can make coffee, when it's all put together like that in a bowl separately, it's not the same. And that's what we have at Yasuke. We got dope samurais, just like we have Jedi's in Star Wars universe. You have mechs the same way. Star Wars has different droids. You have this magical element. Of course Star Wars they use the Force, but in Yasuke they use different like spells and things like that. But even though they have these similar elements, when you watch Yasuke, it just seems like those elements are just there just to be there, but they are not congruent with the story that they're trying to tell. Because when you're introduced to Yasuke, we're expecting it to be a samurai story. So if they really would just focus on one element, it would have made the story a lot better. It would have been that, it would have been that wine. They could have focused on the samurai element, but then added in, there's some great storytelling. I mean, even in Yasuke, you have someone who can like turn into a beast, and I guess in Star Wars you have Chewbacca. So like it's very congruent. But again, in Yasuke, once we're introduced into this world, the added elements don't actually make sense for the world that it's portraying. Rather, when Star Wars, once we already know it's a fictional universe, it makes everything make sense because it makes it look natural. Once we have something, when in Yasuke, when you're watching that series, once you see something like a flashback of him in his samurai gear and then him fighting other samurai and there's blood and things, it actually looks cool. It actually looks like the series that we actually thought we were going to get with Yasuke. But then we'll have a flashback of him in his samurai gear doing samurai things, and then we'll fast forward to the present and he's, I don't know, fighting Optimus Prime beside Harry Potter. So it just doesn't, it's not congruent, and they didn't do a good job of making it all seem congruent, which is why I did this case study based on Star Wars, because they do have these all these other different elements going on, but we all still feel like it's a one universe, and everything still makes sense no matter how kind of out there it gets with its different elements. I mean, even in Star Wars we have bounty hunters and things like that, so it gets pretty out there, but it still feels like it's its own thing. Now I really want to get into the actual story of Yasuke in the anime series, or the basically Skywalker story in Star Wars, because that's a whole nother video on its own, and you really can't. I mean, I guess you could compare those, but that's not what this video is for. This video is more so kind of comparing the story elements and how one of almost the exact same story elements work together and has been going on for decades, and then the other with Netflix, this Netflix series only has one season. And I don't think it's gonna get picked up for another season. I don't think there will be a point anyway. I honestly don't remember the ending of Yasuke. I probably should have watched the ending before doing this video. I don't really remember it. But with this story, regardless, I don't think it's something that has to be that would require to have a sequel anyway. Like I said, unless they do, just his prime samurai time, and just delete out the mechs and magic parts and just have, But I don't think it was successful enough for them to really do another project based on it. I think we probably would have heard about it possibly coming back. If so, like I said, I think a lot of people, a lot of target audience was really looking forward to it. I mean, it looked like it was going to be decent, but it really fell flat. Now, I know I've been kind of bashing a lot this whole video. Now, we'll give props. The soundtrack on it was fantastic. I guess it's one thing that does match with Star Wars. Both soundtracks for them are fantastic. They really did their thing on the Yasuke one. And if I remember correctly, I believe it was by Flying Lotus. Where they did the whole album for Yasuke, and like I said, it was really dope. Even the instrumentals are really good. That part, really brought me into it. But then the actual what I saw visually brought me out of it because it just was not matching all the way through. But what do you guys think about Yasuke? And what do you guys think about this case study? Do you think my analysis is correct, or you think I'm all the way off? If there's anything you guys would add to it, so let me know your thoughts below in the comments. I definitely want to hear from you guys, especially with this one. And also, if you want to hear it or want me to do more case studies on other series or shows or anything like that, all right? But what are you listening to me for anyway? I'm a casual. Cue the outro.